Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Office Hours. Today's special guest is Pinnacle's creative director, Darrell Hayhurst. Welcome, Darrell.
Hey, thank you for having me. Sorry, guys. I wrote more stuff, so you got to listen to me talk again.
It's almost your job now or something.
Right? Yeah.
Well, today is actually National Superhero Day, so how fitting it is. And I don't know that we planned this. I don't think we did, but Necessary Evil.
Planning?
I know. Timing things with national holidays? Never. We don't have that kind of foresight. I think it's more because we do too much stuff to actually be able to have the luxury of like delaying things to where they fit perfectly. But
right, and for me, it's like, well, we just want to write a cool game and do the best we can with it, and so all the effort goes into that.
Yeah.
And then like all of the other like the extras and the side things are like, oh, happy opportunity. Okay, great, but I just want to make a good game.
Absolutely. And so yeah, before we get too into the weeds on who is the mysterious Darrell, where does he come from? What is he thinking?
Mystery. Yeah,
right? We would be remiss. I will shoot a link in the comments in case you are living on a different planet or do not have telepathy or other various superpowers, and show you guys the campaign. It is an awesome campaign. It is Necessary Evil 3.
Cosmic Crisis.
So the superheroes go to space.
And there's a lot of planets, y'all, because you're cosmic level supers and you might wreck the ones you're on. So like literally every chapter, it's a new 1 to 3 planets so that if you break them, like it's okay.
If you thought rifts could break Savage Worlds, no. We're giving you multiple timelines just in case you screw 1 or 2, maybe 3 up. You've got outlets, people. You've got options. You can still play the database backup version of RPGs where. It is kind of a dangerous thing if, like you at the cosmic level. I mean, that's kind of the trope of the thing is powers are bigger, people are snapping realities in and out of existence. It's it's dangerous. It's dangerous out there, folks. So just a quick share because we'd be remiss. Let me see. Let me share screens. We can say, here is the hotness, the Necessary Evil campaign. Right, over 30K, which is great. Thank you so much. We don't have the backer number on there now because of obnoxiousness on the back end, but we will get that back up. That's like the number we really care about.
Right.
So I don't know. Hopefully everybody is in for. Oh, Shane's going to die with the scrolling. The 175 Omega level, the Necessary Evil box set. But I mean.
Well, and hopefully by next week we can have the individual products up too for those of you that wanted to hunt and peck rather than go all in. Although all in's better, but for different strokes.
Right. Oh, and also just getting extra copies of stuff because everybody needs extra copies. Like I do love how like the Rifts fans especially order multiple copies of the Pawns. And if you're on a cosmic level supers, you just might need extra copies of the SPC Pawns or the Pawns from a set. So like you get more, or if you really want to be like really cool and use the metal conviction coins as bennies, you got to order a couple sets. So like that's all in.
That's madness, but I like it.
Right. Let me see. So if everybody was in on the 175 Omega level, like there's almost 200 of you backers on that level, like to get us to where we're at now. So thank you for all of the support so far. And I think the campaign's got about like 2-3 more weeks. So there's still time to get another paycheck or 2 before you commit. But this is a really cool campaign. It brings back the original Necessary Evil, which is the best excuse to play supervillains. I mean, it's also National Superhero Day. Like it's also National Supervillain Day. Really, let's be honest. I mean, we right? I mean, we're all superheroes in our own head. And so it's got this great premise. The premise is like the superheroes were all too naive and didn't understand that the invading aliens could read their thoughts and plans, and so their big, well thought out, earnest, good faith effort to defend the Earth failed almost instantaneously, and they all got wiped out. And so the only people that were left to defend the Earth were all these supervillains who were incarcerated at the time.
Yeah, pretty much. You're in jail so you don't get bombed. Like, well, okay.
I mean, jails do look like bunkers these days, so it's like, you know, it was a nice little coincidence. And you have to be supervillains, have to save humanity, and I really like. I love the origin story, and then Necessary Evil 2 was actually a prequel, which went even more street level, just leading up to the breakout of the alien invasion, and then this one is full on like spoilers. You've mostly dealt with the aliens, but you've attracted some other attention.
Yeah, right. Like, so the war ends in Necessary Evil Invasion. This is all post-war, and this is like, it brings it up to the kind of current setting where, like, the current setting we would call Doomguard rather than Necessary Evil. But this is clearly a Necessary Evil tale, and it deals with a lot of the villains, and in some cases, like, directly with, things that showed up in Invasion or Breakout. You don't need them to play it. But if you have, they're fun, not even Easter eggs, more cameos.
Yeah.
Because we got this cool, interactive, shared superhero universe, and I guess people like those or something, but,
I mean, we were doing it before Marvel. It's been 20 years, folks, so just say it.
Maybe Marvel Cinematic, but
that's true. That's true.
Like, I think Marvel might maybe have us beat on that one.
That's true. We were there before the movies made it cool to be into comics and super. So it's cool now, which is good. So yes, guys, check it out. It is a great campaign. 175 gets you in for all 3 books in print, and they're awesome. So that's
the thing about it, right? Like, it's kind of priced like our regular box set, but it's literally 3 campaigns. In that one. Hey, John.
Right. Yes, metal bennies. I mean, what's more metal than actual metal? I mean, right? Like that's just the way it needs to be. Let's see. Yes, I know, Christian. Okay, so here's the other cool thing too, because it's a game changer. So slight difference to warn folks. It's you pay when you pledge. So if you need to wait until, you filed your taxes, you've gotten your what do you call it? Refund. You can spend a little of that. I know, right? I mean, for those people who are like, I don't know, cough, dumb, and have to give the government a free loan for most of the year or required to buy their business. I mean, not stupid, whatever. But either way, if you're getting some money back, you can spend a little bit of it on some Necessary Evil. I guess it's like the IRS is also Necessary Evil, like perfect little, like, anyways.
Are they necessary?
I don't think so. I mean, but, then again, please don't come knocking on my door. I don't need an audit right now.
The Savage Universe time, and I like it. Very nice.
Yes. I mean, right? We bought Savage Universe for a reason. Apparently, though, we gave it to our aces and swag folks instead of exploiting it to do even more supers. But, right? I know. But at least there's a write-off for that, right? Like, kids are a tax write-off, and you can get the so, make sure you get the write-offs, right? But the
physical, digital, we don't care, y'all. Like, that's right? Why we offer the digital one. We know that the physical's tough on people between shipping and all that. That's why it's there. It's cool.
Right. Also, because it's a game changer, you can upgrade. So if you want to go in now for just the book and then get the whole box set later, awesome. You can do it.
We do need to give a shout out to Christian since he's here. He was the voice of Dr. Destruction in that preview that we did, and it was awesome. So thanks. Yeah. Oh, it's such good stuff. Maybe I can find that. Like, I will go dig for that little video because we played it during the actual play, but we'll play it at the end of the stream. I'll go dig for it. And Christian blushing. We didn't get to pie you in the face yet, Christian. So, the blush will be a nice contrast to the I don't have Mike Barbeau here to make blush, so it's got to be somebody.
It's so fun to make Mike break. He's so cute when he just really like he does flush. Like,
and the best part is it can combine my love of being mean to people with my love of being nice to people, like both at once. Like,
right? It's like put people on the spot with compliments. It's so much more fun. So I guess that's my first question for you. Like, superhero or supervillain, if you had to choose.
Villain.
Right?
I get to choose. I don't get to choose, right? Clearly, born a supervillain. I look like Lex Luthor. Like no hero is bald.
I know.
Professor Xavier, maybe Savior, but honestly, he's a villain half the time anyway. So now villain. I'm just predisposed for it. That's how it had to be.
I'm with you on that. We are brothers in that sense. I mean, one, like my intense desire to pie other people in the face. That's one part of it. But like, right, like male pattern baldness.
I'm gonna set aside the fact that I'm a mean bastard. It's all down to the hair, right?
I'm still pretending I'm not, right? So
Superman made me bald. I will destroy all the civilized planets. That's
true. I mean, Superman soaks up the sun, and then we have to wear hats so we don't get like cancer on the top of our heads, and we have like low vitamin D.
Oh shoot! Is that what you're supposed to do?
I know, right?
Check back here in 10 years to see if Darrell still has a head.
No, or like the Band-Aids old men get where they have to take off the suspicious moles. Yeah, I mean a good name for an RPG design company, Suspicious Mole, and just have it be like an actual like underground like worm-eating mole instead of a black or brown spot on people, like little mole in a trench coat with his little like cute little, I don't know, mole fingers that are on their noses, whatever. Anyways, random thought.
Very random. Yeah.
Right. Apparently, I mean, I got a whole company plan in my head in the last 10 seconds. So here's a random question because it goes right along with the villain thing. On the Myers-Briggs personality thing, have you ever taken that and figured out what your
I do I've taken them all and I mix them all up and forget which numbers or blah 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 blah. But I believe Myers-Briggs, I was an int J.
That is me. I am an INTJ as well. And we are always, every single time when they do like the pop culture grid of all 16, the supervillain is the INTJ.
Yeah. Well, and what was interesting is like that's one of the few that I was like, and this is true of the Zodiacs and everything, right? Where they do them very, very neatly so that whichever one you get, you see enough things that you're like, oh, that's me, right?
Yeah.
But I did feel like, and it's often my role, like in that thing is like I'm the kind of second that just gets stuff done. It's like we need a visionary to like chart the course or whatever, and I'm the executor or whatever that's just like, okay, so someone else had the vision. I'm just going to make this happen, and I can do that. So it's like, well, that seems to fit.
Yeah. Right, it's either Vader or Palpatine, one of the two. That's the only choice for us. I likewise think that they are like fortune cookies in the sense that they ask you questions like, "Do you like puppies?" And then the result is, "You like puppies." You're like, "Oh my god, it is profound! How did it know me so deeply?" It's like
but they're like every other tool, and we've got the equivalents in RPG, right? Where you're like trying to examine like what type of player is. But what it does force you to do is not only self-examine, but cross-examine. Like, oh, what do I want? Like, how do I interact with other people? So like, even if it's completely wrong, there's still value in it, which I find interesting.
Oh, I totally do too, in the sense that not in the Zodiac, although like the Zodiacs play a really big part in like the Renaissance game I'm developing. But
they're cool,
right? You can add them to the tarot, and you have like a bigger deck of just like things that can cause chaos in your games.
In college, we had a cool science. It was an astronomy class, but he also did like impartially like philosophy of science in it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we did that was really fun was he filed the names off of the zodiac signs and had us pick without foreknowledge, like which characteristics were which. And it was really great because when you did it the one way, it was like, oh man, we match our signs like 90%. But when you did it blind like that, when you pick the characteristics and then see what you're assigned to, it was like 5%. It was like statistically worse than just picking it out of randomly. I was like, that's great. Like, that's really cool. Like, that's interesting how people work because they'll, oh yes, I'm an Aquarius. That makes total sense. Oh, when I actually pick out the ones, it turns out I fit better in this completely different category.
Oh no, that is one that's so true, and I think the agree 100%. Like the self-reflective parts are very interesting. So I mean, I think it's hard to be self-reflective. Because I mean, it's kind of like the
you gotta look at yourself.
Yeah, well, it's like the healing penalty, right? Like it's like remember the healing penalty is like you have to you get a penalty on the way out, the way in. If you're trying to heal yourself, it's the same thing. It's you're doubly biased. It's not only it's like the vision, your vision is through a mirror at yourself, and so you're. It is the darker scanner. But I do also think they're kind of fun though. Just if you're figuring out like, just taking the time to be self-reflective and figuring out stuff, maybe it helps you just kind of be like reflective and the same kind of thing. Like, I personally don't believe that there's anybody listening to our prayers or whatever, but the fact that like science proves that a little bit of meditation and or prayer helps with your blood pressure and your clarity and
right, because intent matters, for people, psychology matters, right? But my other favorite was like I thought the Chinese zodiac was much more accurate for the longest time, and then I realized I had done the math wrong and I was a different one. And then I'm like, oh, this other one fits really well too. Great. So I guess it kind of doesn't really matter which one you did. Never mind.
Yeah, I always liked my zodiac one. I'm the cock, but the right, whatevs. But the problem was like, is everybody in my class this year alike in some manner? I'm like, no way. There's just no way that everybody who's this
but
lunar year is
month within the year. But yeah, I'm either the rat or the pig. I forget which. Mm. Both of them sound terrible, but are actually pretty awesome. No,
it's the Asian biases towards animals are different than the Western biases towards animals on which ones are cool and not. And like Christian, like in like Western dragons are very mean and eat you, and Asian dragons are much more whimsical and knowledgeable and protective. And
well, I wouldn't say whimsical, but definitely positive.
Yeah. Now I'm hungry. Now I want Chinese food. Man, which I can't have. So we established supervillain. If you were a supervillain, what do you think? What? So Ronnie, who may or may not be in the chat, he's going to be starting us through a Necessary Evil campaign tonight. Nice. We're doing session 0. I haven't picked my supervillain yet, so I'm going to steal ideas from you. What supervillain trope would you pick if you were going to run a campaign or play in a campaign?
So. Like that's a hard call. Like I wasn't told this was going to be a quiz, right?
Like 20 questions, no answer. Unlike the president, no questions beforehand.
Right. Like I would gravitate towards essentially like the hardest one to play is the mastermind, right? Because it's like you got to be on the ball and you got to set up your stuff, and it's one of those things that's way more based on how you're playing than your power sets. So I'd be like, I would want to do that. But then I would be like, okay, I'm not actually good enough to do that. So I'm going to play like a big dumb brick and just smash stuff. And that is going to be fun at the table.
Oh my God, this is totally.
Or something that I can use a funny voice for. Because.
So yes, we are clones in this regard. Same thing with me with fantasy. Either I want to play like a wizard with all the evil plots already baked in that the rest of the party finds out the hard way, a year and a half from now. Or I'll play like a half ogre brute who has 3 words and uses victims as puppets, and
Well, and the tricky thing about that, and this is like actual like called out in Cosmic Crisis, right? Like those kinds of layered plans are only fun when everybody knows about them and kind of buys in. Like, because if it's like your secret plan and you're just holding on to it. You can have fun, but the other 5 people have no idea something entertaining is happening. So you've got to be like, all right, look, y'all, I'm doing this, right? This is what's happening here. And then when you do it, they can like have that dramatic irony of seeing like, oh yeah, you're totally screwing me over or whatever, like got it. But we all get to enjoy it at the same time. And if your other players can't handle that, don't do it. Like don't play with them or just don't try, because it ain't gonna work anyway. It's gonna be even worse.
This is good life advice. Yes, clearly I'm not the type of player who previously told everybody else that it was coming.
John wants to hear my funny voice. You're hearing it now, friend. Like this is as good as it gets.
That's the secret, John Doom. I'm always doing my funny voice.
Doing the funny voice.
Oh, nice. So origin story. So Darrell's supervillain origin story. Where'd you grow up? Where were you born? What was your childhood like?
Tucson, Arizona, right? Like, it's really funny because, when I grew up, a lot of people wanted to leave Tucson, and I never really felt that. Like, I like the desert, I like the heat, and the and I thought Tucson's like that great cross section of it's just big enough to have any kind of big city stuff that you really want, but also like not so big that it's like a ridiculous, urban nightmare. And and you can drive 30 minutes and be out of it, like in the desert or whatever. So like I liked it, right? And I had a lot of good friends here. Tracy Sizemore's one of them. Like, I kept all of those friends.
How far do you two go back?
Yeah, we do. We go back to pre-grade school.
Oh, hot damn.
Right? Yeah. And the cool thing is, like, I've got a lot of, like, this is something I'm proud of, right? I have a lot of friends that I've had like that long, that we've stayed in touch and stayed friends and all that. Because apparently I don't know that I make friends easily, so I need to hold on to the ones that I do. They can put up with me. Oh, I better keep, better hang on here. Right.
I mean, I've got photographic evidence of this time period from our.
You'll see what I'm talking about.
Oh, come on! You have the members only jacket. I mean, look at this stuff. Look how cool this is. I mean, seriously, that kid is too cool for school. I love the flat cap. The glass. I mean, I think my mom had those glasses, like literally, like perfection, sir. My dad definitely had that color members only jacket though, like the light blue veering into gray. It was.
Let's just say that kid was not cool. Still isn't.
But that kid was Darrell because he still had hair. Like,
yeah, right. Oh yeah, I had for a while.
God. I mean
that kid was still Honey Badger. Like, I know I'm not cool, but I'm going to do this anyway, right?
Well, hi, puppy. Hannibal agrees that kid was cool. Let's see. Oh yeah, Christian had that jacket, right? I mean, you could sell that jacket for good money these days now. I mean, the 80s are back in style.
My favorite windbreaker. Yeah, my windbreaker and my trapper keeper. Those would be the things of the day.
Oh god, the trapper keeper and the peachy folders. Oh my god. And there we go. See, and now you release space games for a living.
Right? Like you say, it all comes around. Tracy's right. Legos were the bomb. The bizarre.
So I had gotten out of Legos for like a little bit. I think maybe, 10, 15 years ago, I was up at the there's a really awesome, I think Boeing kind of spends the money for it, like Air and Space Museum up outside of like Seattle, I think. Somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. I did a whole little like weekend treasure hunt thing up there. And I went to the Air and Space Museum, and then they've got like the Wright Flyer and some really other cool stuff.
Shuttle,
So I bought a Lego set that was like, it was the Red Baron and a Sopwith Camel, and they were expensive then. And then I recently looked on them, and they're like up to like $600 or $700.
No, I can't afford them now. But the great thing is, my parents, bless them, did not throw mine away. So I've still got this like giant bin full of Legos, and every couple of years when I have spare time, oh my goodness, every couple of years when I have spare time, like I'll break that out and I'll build something and I'll put it on a shelf and be like, oh my god, this is a mess. Well, like like only every couple of years. Anything more than that would be extravagant.
You step on one and you just remember, oh yes, this is why. There's a certain kind of pain, and there's like childbirth, dental surgery, kidney stone, and then they're stepping on a Lego, and all in the same kind of orbit. Anyways, from what I've heard. Hey, buddy. So let's see. Speaking of like big dogs, you're also a big dog enthusiast, and you sent in an awesome picture. So tell me, who is this lovely specimen?
That was Tala. She was one of two greyhounds that we had. They're both passed. Tup Bayless was the other one. Beautiful dogs. They were both rescues, and like I get attached to dogs, which is why I tend to like. As a kid, we had a dog, and I loved her to pieces. She hated me, right? But I loved that dog to pieces, right? And I was devastated when she died. You learned that lesson, right? It's like we live longer than dogs. We just do. Yeah. So I was reticent to ever have dogs in my life. But my ex was she was definitely a dog gal. Like we needed to do that. And we lived in a small space, so I wasn't sure how that was going to work. But greyhounds, it turns out, they are the perfect dog, right? Because I mean, they're big, they're fun, whatever, but also they're 10 minutes a day worth of exercise and work, and then they just sleep for the other 23 hours and 50 minutes. You cannot beat that, right? Like it's awesome. They're beautiful. They're great. So I miss them both to pieces, both, taken by cancer,
Yeah.
but they had good runs, right? They had good runs.
No, that's the hard thing about I think probably because same reason Colorado for a long time had a lot of greyhound rescue. Like we actually had greyhound racing here.
Yeah,
it's kind of
we had a park here in Tucson.
Yeah. And the number of dogs you wash out of that is kind of immense. There's healthy greyhound rehoming and rescue programs, and we finally outlawed ours, and that kind of helps solve the greyhound rescue problem at least. But
oh man, some of the most fun you can have, even if you don't have a greyhound, but if you want to be surrounded by dogs, a lot of times the rescues, they will have a park time or a place, and they will do what's called a greyhound run, where all of the people who have greyhounds, and they've got to be muzzled usually because that many greyhounds, you can't control them, but they're all muzzled and they're in an off-leash facility, and they just chase each other around, for like an hour. Like you don't actually have to own a greyhound to go. Like you can just go and be surrounded by greyhounds running around. It's fantastic, right?
Yeah, and then there's a dog sport that kind of like mimics the kind of the rabbit chase they do in the racing. They call it lure coursing, where they'll go up and set up like little spindles around, and they'll wire a wire through all the spindles, and then put a rag or a faux fur on the line and zoom it around with a little motor, and the dogs just God, they think it's the greatest thing ever.
Well, and that was the nice thing about ours is they both washed out because they did not have high prey drive. And we had cats too, so that was important. It's like if they've got good prey drive, if that cat runs, we're not going to have a cat. So
we're cats,
but but they were great.
Oh, Tracy's got it showing a really deep cut, literally. Ooh. Tracy, for the visit. Wow, Tracy being uncoordinated? Never. I've also fallen out of too many trees. Second grade. Ouch.
That you guys don't know how hard it is to climb a tree in Arizona, right? Like most of them are Palo Verdes, and they've got spikes all the way up. Oh, I climbed them as a kid. Like it's doable, but you got to be very cautious. Then you got mesquites, which are much more climbable, but also can have thorns. There's options, but it can be tricky. So like if you're a kid climbing a tree in Arizona, like you're ambitious, like you have to work at that.
Oh no. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have them there, but we have like black widows. They're not really a major problem, but if you build a tree house of any kind, they will move in and decide it's the greatest place ever. So
we get black widows out here. My dad was actually nearly killed by one.
Ooh.
Why I have like mild arachnophobia to this day is he was working where they moved London Bridge to Havasu. Mm-hmm. He was actually working construction on that site in a little trailer that he was staying in. And turns out he got bit just as he was going to sleep exhausted after a day of work. And so it had like 8 hours to work through him. And we happened to be coming up to visit him and like arrive. And here's like, comatose dad with the swollen thing. And I'm a little kid. And I only distinctly remember like, I didn't know what was going on, but you've got the what's going on around you.
The right? Vibe. Mommy suddenly got super serious.
Exactly. Like mom's freaking out and we're in a hospital and the doctor looks serious and you're like, well, I don't know what's happening here, but it ain't good. Right. So like, that's like one of the few creatures that it's like, oh, Black Widow. Well, that's just got to go. Right. Like, yeah. There is no peaceful coexistence here. Done.
When I was in like kindergarten, because they're a serious enough threat, like we had a woman whose husband was he was at least paralyzed, and I don't know if he passed or not, but she brought around the black widow that bit him to the kindergarten I was in to like show the kids in the jar, and the kid who got to hold the jar before me went with the jar, and there was like a little slice of potato in there, I guess is what the theory was, and it smushed the. So I got to see the smushed. smushed Black Widow, but it didn't survive our kindergarten class, so it would bite no one else. But the yeah, that's
kindergartners are horrible. I think our class ended up accidentally killing a tarantula, which are the sweetest spiders in the world and the best. So everyone leave tarantulas alone. They're great.
I don't know the whole like.
I mean
they look the hair off of themselves, and they create like silicosis in their victims because they inhale the spider hair. I'm like,
but that's just it. It's like, come on, guys. The only way a tarantula's hurting is if you put it in your mouth. So
it's kind of true.
Just leave them alone. They're great.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a spider guy, but tarantulas are the best. So
yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like I mentioned, like the dog world. So like I was heavily into the dog world, whatever. And one of the comics I've got, they run a providing animals for movie studios training. So they train animals, and then they have a network of other trainers who have animals. It's like you could never, like, if you need a puppy, right? You're not going to be in puppies for 90% of the year. So you got to know the people. Anyways, one of the things they do is they've got an insect wrangler, and they've got like the hissing cockroaches and centipedes that are just like this long. And I'm like, it's creepy, but apparently you can train those things enough. That they can
and they'll look horrible. Like usually the ones that look horrible are the ones that aren't so bad. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's like that's another weird thing too. Is some of the spiders and other kind of creepy crawlies. Like you have like scorpions too. It's the big ones can defend themselves with physical force, like pinchers and claws. It's the tiny ones that get the most venom because they're tiny.
The small ones have more concentrated venom, and they're young, so they don't have the means to control it. So if they hit you, like, a little teeny scorpion, this is things you learn in Arizona, y'all. Yes, I grew up around poisonous. Like everything out in the desert, I grew up in the desert where everything will stick you, stab you, or bite you, and it's mostly poisonous.
The Australia of America.
And here's how cool, you're talking about cool little kid. Here's how cool I was, in 6th grade. Like, I'm running around in the desert in sandals and socks. Fashion forward, right? Like that was not how you do the desert. P.S. I got stabbed so many times. I actually developed a immunity to spines. So like jumping cholla wouldn't stick to me. I once fell into a patch of cactus and nothing stuck. I just got up and walked away. That is not true anymore, but like I got stabbed a lot, and it turns out just like you can get used to a lot, and your skin adapts to it. And apparently, you can adapt to having armor.
We don't have a lot of cactus around here, at least kind of in the springs, but there is like some in some of the trails I take the dog on, and it finds its way home on me all the time. I will like be in the car and be like, "What's biting my leg?" And it's like a little tiny cactus bulb that like attaches itself to me.
Had to do surgery for people that get stuff stuck in them, and you got to find the right. Yeah.
I think my most dangerous. Of all the like things you think would be pretty innocent, my most dangerous insect encounter was actually with a caterpillar. It's one of those really cool, beautiful ones. It was like very spiky and very like fur on it. And I, of course, picked it up and had it in my hand because it was gorgeous. And it turned out it also had some kind of mucus that made your skin. Yeah. So I remember at the hospital, and my hand looks like a superhero villain with the big limb, and it's all just puffy and whatever. And luckily, that was all it was. But
we get brown recluses, and I've had run-ins with rattlesnakes and things like that. Like I've never gotten bit. I've been chased by javelina.
Those are dangerous, man. Those are
right. Well, what's interesting is they sort of are. The great thing about them is they've got terrible eyesight. So, like, if you've never seen a javelina, right? Really, they're a giant rat, but they look like a boar, right? They've kind of got almost like tusks, and they're a big hairy pig, right? And so they're kind of scary, but they've got terrible eyesight. And the problem is, if they know you're there, they want nothing to do with you. But they're dumb and blind, so you can stumble onto them. If you're paying less attention than they are, you will startle them. And if they get startled, they can mess you up. So you learn. It's like, oh, no, you make noise walking through the desert so stuff can Make a path for you. Stealth is not your friend.
That's kind of thing in Colorado too. I mean, we're like, if you're in the mountains, like basically it's like black bear, and they also want nothing to do with you. Your trash, right? So it's like if you're at a camping ground or whatever, you make them make enough noise, and the mountain lions and the bears will hear you and go away instead of you stumble upon them on the trail. And,
well, sort of depends sometimes. We've actually had like maulings and things like that, and not exactly where I live, but within 30-minute drive of it. Yeah, they can be. Bears are no joke. Like, I get it; they're beautiful, but also they will mess stuff up.
The mountain lions are no joke too. Like we had one. I mean, it kind of depends on like how much food they get in like the early spring and put on a little weight. Like when they don't get enough food, they will go searching far and wide for food. And so we had.
Turns out a house cat can mess you up. So one that's 120 pounds will kill you. So probably not best to mess with that.
Yeah. Well, so they'll come down. Like we got a thing called the Highline Canal, and they came down from the mountains. And so I mean, we're in like metro suburban Denver, and I
like that this makes it sound like I grew up in this super dangerous jungle. Really, right? I have been chased by coyotes too. So.
we get yard rabbits. The coyotes, we got your coyotes. They moved in, like 10 years ago. This weird cycle of like the yard rabbits came, and there was a bunch of yard rabbits, and then the foxes came to get the yard rabbits, and then the coyotes came and kind of limited the foxes because coyotes are bigger. And everyone like on the East Coast is like, oh, these can't be coyotes. Coyotes are only like 25 to 35 pounds. I'm like, no, these are some big ass coyotes. Like they are 70 or 80 pounds. Well, it turns out, guys, that apparently the red wolves and the coyotes have been getting it on, and so there's some larger genes in coyotes out here.
Coyotes do what it takes, man. Like they're cool. Like they're cool.
They are
what's with them?
What is it? The Wile E. Coyote. Wile E. Coyote is like my hero. I did my college essay on Wile E. Coyote. But yes, they're very clever. They're smart animals. But so let's see. So if you were born and raised in Arizona, have you ever been out of the country?
Oh yeah. So I think the two most notable trips. One was when I was working for Ulysses. They brought me up to Germany to work there for a couple of weeks and also hit UK Game Expo in London while I was there. So I didn't really think I'd ever get a chance to go see Europe or England or any of that, but I got to, and it was freaking cool, right? And much more doable than I thought. Like after I did it, and invoice and this and that, I'm like, wait, I could have actually probably swung this. Like, all right, good to know. So, but I thought, and the most interesting for me was back when I was working tech. I ended up going to Bangalore, and we were doing. We were doing like training and onboarding for a team that was coming up there. Many of whom are still my friends today. Great people, like some of the greatest people I've ever met. And it's interesting because Bangalore's not quite exactly an opposite side of the world, but really close. And so it's fun seeing like the differences and the changes and the difference in culture. And you get a very new perspective on Americans and how the world works when you go someplace really different and see like, oh boy, there's a lot that I take for granted, but also there's a lot that they're on to something here. Like that's really neat. Yeah, so on the mind, y'all.
I think there is someone more famous and eloquent says, like there's no replacement for travel, whether it's, racism or whatever. I just think that those problems, like, you just go see the world, go see how other people live. And I'd echo that experience. I haven't gotten that far, but that's the half a world away. How long did you get to go for?
It was 3 trips actually. 2 weeks the first one, and then 1 week on the second 2. And what was really fun was we got laid off during that last trip, and it was
we trained our replacements, and they let us go the second we were done.
It was more like they accidentally announced it while we were there, and we're all looking around like, do we have a plan to get home? Like, are we just getting left here? What's happening here?
At least the food's delicious.
Oh my God. Oh, the Empire in Bangalore. Oh. If you ever go to Bangalore, y'all, there's a chain called the Empire. Their tikka masala can't be beat.
Still hungry. Yeah, this is still a bad time to do a stream. It's the afternoon. like the pre-dinner stream, post lunch, pre-dinner.
You
like,
scheduled it, man.
I know it is my fault. I am the cause of all of my problems, really. There's no doubt about that. That's awesome. So, any place that you haven't been that you'd love to go?
Someday I'm gonna make it to China, like Hong Kong, China. It's a culture that I have admired and been interested in for as long as I can remember. And just everything about it fascinating, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, same as American history, right? And someday I'm gonna go, but I always told myself, like, well, if I go, I'm gonna know enough Chinese to get by, and that's been a problem. I just haven't had the time. No Duolingo for me yet, so so I was like, okay, well, we'll put this off for another decade while I get my act together. But someday.
Duolingo is like the new Peg craze. Everybody's doing Duolingo on Peg, and I'm here going, I need to get on this train. I mean, the point, like, here's a little anecdote. So Jody and Clint, they're obviously up in Japan, and it turns out their daughter, who's they're studying, didn't tell them that she was actually studying Japanese for many, many, many more months than she let on. It was kind of like these, like, oh, I'll just start picking it up once I'm there. It'll be easier when it's immersive. But since they're there, it's like, oh, no, I had at least like more than half of a year lead on you guys. I've been intensive studying, and I'm nearly conversationally fluent enough to actually play tour guide and order, and so I'm like, wow, the Black family knows how to keep secrets. It was also like Jody told us that they're in the Godzilla hotel, and not only are they in the hotel, she got like the suite that's got like the decked out Godzilla suite.
It's got Godzilla in it, yeah,
right. Yeah. So that was Clint's birthday present. I was like, you guys, I can't keep secrets. That's why they don't tell me anything. I mean, we almost spoiled it during the stream too. We were about to like, oh yeah, and when Donald was on for office hours, that was the thing. So you see Donald was like really excited to say something, and he was like, that was it. We knew that there was the hotel room that they were going to get, and outright yes, in JM, yeah, I mean that's also the thing too. Like I studied Latin in
I did German, which actually surprised. Like I'd forgotten it all by the time I actually went to Germany, but like it came back fast enough that I realized I need to stop doing this, because you'd go to the museum and I would, ask for a program or instructions in the German that I had, and they would give me the one in German, and then I'd be staring at it like crap. And then they would like look at me funny and then be like start trying languages like English. Yes, I like English. And they're like, oh, like we'll just swap that out. I'm like, got it. I need to stop pretending that I know what I'm doing, and they'll take care of me. This will be much, much easier.
Just enough to get into trouble.
And Spanish, I had, again, lost it. And then if a good telenovela comes along, I'll pick it back up again.
Corazón. Oh my God. That's true. Every romantic Spanish song in the world, it has to have Corazón in it. And anyways, that's my theory of the world. Same. Like, I took Spanish in like middle school, and then like trying to learn Italian in college, the Spanish came back. It was like, I haven't studied this in 8 years or whatever, and it is actively interfering with me learning a new language that I'd like to learn. And
according to Gam rules, they're like the same, man. A bunch of them is like, whatever. It's all based on Latin. If you know one, you can speak any Romance language. You got French too.
Oh. French is the scary one. I'm one of those horrible people who thinks they have good pitch and has horrible pitch, but still doesn't really, like in the moment, I could never figure out. Like that's kind of the problem with like Mandarin. It's like the tones are kind of very important.
Well, and Mandarin's got much simpler tones than Cantonese. Yeah. There's only 4 that you got to worry about in Mandarin. Which I made one other run at learning Chinese because I was watching Hong Kong movies, and I learned just enough to figure out that I was learning the wrong language, because the ones that were available were Mandarin. Yeah. And you learn it and you get the basics or whatever, like or blah 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 blah. And then yeah, and then watching the movies enough to be like, okay, they're not speaking Mandarin. They're speaking Cantonese. There's a Mandarin track. I could switch over to that, and be reinforcing my learning, but I like them better in Cantonese, and Cantonese is harder to learn, so forget it. I'm just kidding.
We're done here.
Yeah, we're done here.
Yeah, I can't just say. I mean, I've had like my college roommate was Asian, and he was trying to explain the tones, and it's like I cannot hear the difference. I see you mouthing the same thing 4 times and it sounds the same to me each time. It's like they're different, Landau. And I'm like, I can't
They
hear
are
it.
different. Yeah.
My ear is not attuned enough to actually hear it.
It makes a big difference. Like it's
right?
it's the difference between please help me and something significantly less beneficial.
Oh my god, Portuguese. Oh, so good. Well, that's a question though. It's like which one, like Brazilian or actual Portuguese? Like
I don't know Portuguese, but I had to work with it back in my tech days. So we were doing translations or whatever. The only word I remember from Portuguese is obrigada.
Thank you. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So what butter meant like Spanish is mantequilla, and then Portuguese is like mantec. I think I don't know. Anyway, so I'm sure Nelson will tell us. But yeah, that was like that's the thing with like when Spanish goes rogue, like all the other languages.
And also the difference between Castilian. So it's like you have to talk with a lisp if you're speaking Castilian. There's all sorts of variations.
No, it's true. Yes. Language is a wonderful thing. So German and China Cantonese. We do them.
I learned nothing, right? Like I do not speak anything. I barely speak English, y'all. These are all, very American in that particular side of it. Like, yep, pretty much down English.
Well, and it's
I dabble in others.
I'd love to be like the Dutch, right? When they speak like 7 and they're just fluent in all of them, and
or India.
Oh,
like everyone I know there knows 6 to 7 languages, and the joke was like you need to know that many to not get beat up on the playground. Like that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think the big thing there too is just like it's so much easier when you can hear native speakers speaking it natively in regular conversation versus an academic situation. It's, the brain works better that way. It's like you think about it, like we don't teach little kids English. They pick it up from their parents, they pick it up from their peers, and it's natural pickup. And so it's hard being American where you have to seek that out. A little more difficultly.
Depends on where you live, really.
Oh, it's true. Right. Yes. Go to the restaurants and then listen to the kitchen staff. You will get, you'll get some crude Spanish, but hey, it's utilitarian at least. So here we go. What's your favorite food? You mentioned like the tiki masala, which sounds.
Well, I mean, it's good. I'd probably say my favorite's pad thai. I mean, there's a lot of food that I love, but pad thai is like it leapt to the front. Just enough spice, little peanuts crushed over it.
Asian food's so different than American food. There's they don't have crap for desserts. They put all the sugar and other stuff in the savory dishes.
Variable.
Sugar and custard desserts. But it was like the lactose intolerance is much more higher there, and they don't really do the refined sugars like we do. So you don't get like the French or Austrian. What we inherited is the dessert ethic of like cakes and that kind of stuff. They're much more like, oh, here's slightly sweeter beans inside of your bun. But oh my god, I think like red or green curry is my favorite. So I am also number one is Thai dish, like Thai green curry with the little aubergines, little Thai eggplants are just like, that's the best. I would eat that all day. So I'm with you. That's good stuff. Let's see. What are the good questions? Like chat, help me out here. What else would you want to know about the deep and dark of Darrell?
You don't want to go deep and dark, y'all. Telling you right now.
So our previous guests, we either did scars or tattoos. So do you have any cool scars? I mean, we've talked about falling out of tree. Maybe I kind of covered.
So I do have one. I was going to say, like, I definitely don't have any tattoos, and thank goodness, right? Because like anything that I was into at a point where I would have gotten a tattoo, I'm probably not into now. So I'd be looking at it now like, change my mind there. Too bad that's permanent. My one scar, and you can't really see it, it's up here. When I was a kid, we were hiking, and I'm sitting in a hammock, and being a dumb kid, swinging in the hammock, swing all the way around, plonk down, hit the back of my head on a sharp rock. And of course, it's just like a Monty Python movie, right? There's just blood just fountaining out of it. We're out in the middle of nowhere, like miles away from anything. And it's a head wound, right? It's not stopping. So they're tying my hair in a knot over it to put the direct pressure on. And I'm like eight or something like that. and I had to walk it out, right? Because my poor sister, she's 6 and was wiped out. So my dad had to carry her. So I was like, it's cool. I'm walking out, it's all good. By the time we made it to the car, it had finally kind of scabbed over. It was all right. But
this is how Darrell ruined the family vacation.
that's right, y'all. Yeah. And got the head blow that made me who I am today. So
yeah. Well, so folks want more about the RPG industry side. So John Doom's asking about your pedigree. So like, tell me, like, one, what was the first RPG you played? And then tell me about like how'd you get your first job, like Fat Messiah Games and Third Eye and all that stuff.
Yeah, so where I started was playing Champions in middle school. We had some older boys that we knew from Boy Scouts that were playing it and brought us into their group. And I loved it. And then we played some D&D, and I didn't love it because I'd gotten used to Champions, where you get to make decisions about your character and certain things work a certain way. So I didn't have that like nostalgia. Like it wasn't where I started, right? Like I got into it later, like, oh, this is why it's good. But when I started, it was pretty much like, well, you're the spell mule, right? Like just cast what I tell you to when I tell you to. Like, okay, this is fun. Oh, I've got 3 hit points. Fun, great. Like, so that's where I started playing and moved on to like all of the amazing panoply of games that were out, in the 80s and 90s. And as you do, started messing with them, hacking them. Like, oh, I really like GURPS, but I started on Champions and I don't like the way GURPS does its superpowers. So what if we weld Champion superpowers onto GURPS? And we called it DERPS. Right. So like you mess around with stuff and like, yeah, you get a feel for it, right? Like, oh, okay. And so I started writing my own things. And I've attempted to break in 3 times. And the third time it stuck, right? But the first time was out of high school. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I was like, well, here's what I really want to do is I want to write games. Let's see. I'll give myself the summer to try and make some money doing it and see how it goes. And I wrote an article about hopping vampires for Pyramid Magazine, the last physical issue that came out.
You closed them. You ended them.
I did. I finished it off, right? Right. And it was like 1 cent a word. And I think the check was like $8 or something. And I don't even think I cashed it. I think I just kept it. Right? It's like,
put it in a frame.
Put it in a frame, but it's like, all right. And that was the only work that I got doing that for the summer. And I'm like, okay, so doing the math, I don't think $3 a month is going to be enough to live on. So I'm going to have to try something else. So I went to like when I went into college for was teaching, and I did that for a couple of years and ended up leaving after about 3 years before I left that. And then I went into tech and did very well in tech, actually. And during that period, I made run number 2. If people want to know how to get in, right, go to a convention and talk to people in your area that are actually doing it. That's how the article was actually just me looking like at magazines and like, oh, they're doing submissions. I'll do it, right? I'll take my shot. But anything else that I did was we had a local designer named Phil Eklund who did a game called Insecta. And at our local game convention, I was like, wow, this guy lives here and does games. I would like to know more. So I became a play tester with his group and worked with him. And that was really fun. And I learned things, right? And in around 1998, I ended up meeting up with his publishers, Fat Messiah Games, and I did a game called Hard Vacuum for them, which, World War II space combat. I still think it's a pretty cool game, and I've learned a valuable lesson afterwards when I tried to like redo it, and I'm like, oh my god, anything that I touch breaks it. So, like, good job, me. like there's a very narrow window. There was a very narrow window of success here. Like, anything else, anything you change, like, actually ruins it. Good to know, right? But so we published that, and it came out in 99 and 2000. and we didn't really lose money, but we didn't really make any money. So like that was kind of attempt two. And it's like, all right, $3 a month is still not enough to live on. I'm staying in tech. And then in the intervening years, what I would do to cool down was write my own games, role playing, all that. I mean, I'd still be playing everything, Champions, Savage Worlds, whatever. Like that's all like informing, how I'm designing, but I'm still tinkering with my own. And I didn't know it, but what I was really doing was I was developing my skill set.
Yeah.
Like if I had been hired either of those previous 2 times, I would have been good. Like I'd have been okay. Like not bad, but not good. But turns out, like it's like exercise, right? I was exercising for the third attempt. Third attempt came when, again, go to conventions, get to know people. I got laid off, and I'm like, well, I got a little bit of funding built up. I'm going to take the 6 months instead of going back and looking for another tech job that would, kill my soul. I'm going to try and do what I want to do. And when I make $3 a month at it, I will go back to the real world, after 6 months. And at least I tried. And ended up Ron Blessing. His whole thing is his superpower is he knows people. So like I got a job with Eloy Lasanta writing for him. And then Ron introduced me to some more Savage folks, which is more my speed, right? The gunmetal games. And then I'll meet Shane at a convention. I'd met him before, but like was actively playing with him at this point. And like, well, here's my one sheet. Here's what I can do. And he brought me on. The timing for that was really good for working on Torg, which he needed someone there for, and happens to have played it like during those years of like, yeah, I've done Torg. Like this is not alien to me, right? And that ended up working very well and led to steady work. And then when Ulysses closed down their North America side, anything that was being published that didn't have stuff actively coming out, I had been doing Torg, so Torg stayed. I'd moved over to developing Space 1889, which is one of my absolute favorite settings, also available for Savage Worlds, right? But the book wasn't out yet by the time they had to make a decision. And it's like, well, we got to let that whole thing go, and you're part of that. I'm like, okay. But Shane was right there for me and moved in. And then, I wrote stuff. I got stuff done. And they said, hey, let's get you in the creative director role to maybe get that going on multiple lines. And so that's what I'm working on now. And that's why I don't talk on Facebook anymore. So I'm busy doing stuff. It's like, oh, I feel bad. Like I should give people updates and things, but I'm working. Sorry.
Yes, the juggling, right? Like it's like when you move from 2 balls to 3 balls to 4 balls to 5 balls, it's like everything in the air. It's.
But that's why I love talking to people about how to break in, and I like being realistic about it in terms of, it's like any career where you can do it, but the question is it for you, right? Because the money to effort ratio is not as good as you can get somewhere else. So if you're just in it for the money, I tell people don't do it. If you are going to do it anyway, like I was, okay, this can be done. You can make a solid living at this, but you've got to plan. You've got to, have some things together. And the most important thing is 1, get to know people like at conventions and whatever. 2, don't irritate those same people. It's so easy to do, right? Where you're just like, oh, man, I hate this thing. It's like, oh, well, I wrote that, so I don't really want to work with you. Glad I didn't get that one tattoo.
Right? Your game sucks.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Because things change. Right. And
Well, I think you're very prescient on the skill set thing, where it's like I think there are probably many people who like can do art that is good enough to publish, but they can't do it fast enough to make commissions a go, right? Like
that's just
if it takes you 6 months to create your masterpiece, you can't be a production artist. You need to be your turnaround. But say very similar with writing is you need to be the kind of person whose creativity and discipline mesh enough to hit a deadline. And I think that even more than I hate your game, the worst thing you can do is I'm going to take money from you to produce a product and you don't deliver it on time.
Or if you are slower, plan for it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh yeah, like this isn't going to be a mainline production thing, but if you want to do your own personal game, like, okay, cool. Here's what it's going to cost you. Here's the time that it's going to take. Plan for that. And, one of the pieces of advice is that I find interesting is finish and publish. But I almost am always like, my plan was finish, but don't publish. And I'm kind of grateful I didn't publish the stuff. Like, it was publishable. It was literally like, okay, I have got this file. I could get a galley copy here if I wanted to. And I look back at it now and it's half brilliant, like, oh my God, look at me doing the thing, and half like painful, like, oh my God, I am so glad this is not out in the public, like, oh, this was terrible. Like, this was a horrible rule. Like, why would I have even thought that was cool? So there's 50-50, but it wasn't lost, right? It was building that skill set. So I've made those mistakes on my own time and can iterate very quickly now. And also can take criticism when you do something and someone's like, no, and you're like, all right, cool, I'll just do it again. That's what I would do on my own. So
yeah, and the iteration part is just really important too. If you think about it, like I think a lot of people might have really great ideas and creative ideas, but if your writing is at 80% and it needs to be more like 95, like just because there are editors and people are hired to fix it doesn't mean the company thinks it's worth the time and the money to continually have to have someone else fix your writing, right? It's like, we want to spend the 5% on iteration on polishing the great, not, having to go and tweak bad grammar or whatever.
And
so
it's also being open to that. Yeah. Because like I think a mistake that some people make when they've turned something in and get back edits, red lines or whatever, is they want to defend themselves and be like, well, no, it should be this other way, or I didn't make a mistake. And it's like, we don't care. Don't care. What I did care is if you fixed it, right? So like my first one sheet that I sent to Shane had red ink. It was bloody, right? Blood all over it. But I got it back and I just changed those in 2 hours and sent it back. And that's when I got hired. It was like, yeah, it's not that you made mistakes. It's that you fixed the mistakes without a fuss. That's huge. So like, if you're trying to break in, y'all, like, be open to that. There are times when you'll need to fight, like, oh, wait, no, I believe in this other thing, but pick that fight carefully, because 90% of them are like, oh no, I was just wrong. Never mind. We do it this way. Got it.
Well, right. And if you also realize too that it's like the ultimate goal is that the public sees a good product.
Correct. Like, that's always what it's about. Like, we want to put out the best thing that we can put out, and ego has no place in that process.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No one cares if there was an argument over a rule or it's like, no, it's those things.
Well, we can talk about that on the documentary, in 20 years or whatever.
Behind the music.
Yeah, behind the game.
Yeah. So our two other tech guys watching both want to know, what was the tech job? What were you doing in tech?
Yeah, so there were two. I started at AOL because I didn't know what I wanted to do beyond teaching. I just knew I didn't want to do that anymore. And my mom was like, well, you should do tech support. AOL's hiring. And I'm like, I don't know a thing about computers. I literally just gotten a computer with AOL on it, 6 months before. But they were like, hey, if you don't know anything, we'll teach you. And I'm like, well, I don't got anything else to do. And the rate that they would pay you during training was like triple what I made teaching. So I'm like, well, sure, I'll go, take a class and get paid for it, whatever, thinking it would not go well. But what they did back then that I thought was very brilliant, for your entry into it, they weren't looking for people with skills or technical skills. They were looking for people with listening skills. So your entry exam is they put you on a headset and they would play you a little recording, and it would be like, oh, I've got this problem, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a little thing that says, all right, what do you think the problem is? And if you're listening, it tells you exactly what the problem is. Like, oh, like, you know, I messed with my phone and now my thing doesn't work. What do you think the problem is? I think it's with the phone. I mean, they literally just said it if you're paying attention. And I thought that was brilliant because that meant they were hiring active listeners, right? And so I went on the phones, which I didn't mind. Like everyone hated, it seems like, but me. But I'd just come out of teaching where I'm like, okay, teaching y'all is kind of like this, but with 30 people at a time for 8 hours solid. So this is easy. Like super easy, barely an inconvenience to do. And I was good enough at it that within 6 months I was doing it online, which meant I got to write the answers rather than speak the answers. And that tied very well. And very, very rapidly within that, I was writing canned responses to make myself faster. Other people started using them, and that got me into the knowledge management side of it, to where within a year I was just writing databases for them and learning a whole new skill set. So part of it was just I was a good learner. Like I was open to learning, but I came in with almost no skill to speak of, but it escalated very rapidly. And then by the time AOL was gone,
what Shane's continued patronage was not enough to keep the company afloat.
I've still got my AOL account. It's free, but you know, ain't no one paying for it. But again, I got laid off and you had the 6 months to figure something else out. One of my friends there, David Bramwell, had gone to a local development place called Improvement Interactive. And I started there as quality assurance. And again, kind of learned as I was going. And within a year, I was a manager. And within 2 years, I was like the president of international operations or something. I made good money, y'all, at that tech job. Like I didn't love it, but the money was really good. I wouldn't have left it except layoff time. And that was a very intentional layoff, right? Like I'd reached a point where I knew like, okay, there are things that I can do to remain relevant and not get laid off. I just don't want to do them. I'm not happy, right? And it's hard to walk away from, and I couldn't walk away from that much money, but I could not put in the effort to where they would walk away from me. So, and then, yeah, I gave myself the 6 months to do writing, and with help, got my foot in the door there and was shocked, like literally shocked when I started making enough money to get by. And I've got fairly modest needs, right? Like I'd built up a nest egg and all that, but you still are like, okay, I'm going to need at least X a month to keep paying my bills and pay my mortgage and blah, blah, blah. And when I started making it, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to go back to the real world. You know, like, whoa, like, well, this changes everything, you know?
Yeah, good stuff. So if you had to go to that private island, yeah, let's just say we make a couple million in the next Kickstarter, whatever. What desert island, top 5 RPGs you take with you?
So,
and Nelson's question, the same thing. What dice set are you bringing with you with your top 5 RPGs?
So clearly Savage Worlds, right? Like I you know, that's not just because I work at it. Like I gravitated towards the system. And even though I write my own, like it kind of hurts me sometimes where I'm like, oh, I want to write my own, but I should just use Savage Worlds for this. It's just going to work better. Damn it. You know, like, oh, you got me again, Shane. So like that one's clearly number one. I would bring Champions, part nostalgia, part like it's just great. The other 3, so there's like I've got a shelf with 100 of them on it. The horrible thing is I'm going to leave the other 3 blank because I know the people that wrote so many of them, and I don't want to disparage anyone for not making
that's the legit answer.
Because I buy them, right? Like I buy them, I love them, I play them. We play all sorts of stuff, right? Like, but the ones I go back to, Savage Worlds I go back to all the time, and Champions I go back to for nostalgia. Everything else, it's all purpose built. It's like, oh, I feel like playing Aliens. Aliens RPG is pretty good for that. Surprise, I will use that, But for, I mean, gosh, I played GURPS. I mean, it would probably be a generic because I'm on a desert island, right? But I don't know. Maybe something with survival tips in it because I'll need them.
It's true. So do you have a favorite possession gaming wise or even otherwise, non-wise, like in your house, like like favorite dice set? But
like my actual favorite dice set, and they're not the ones that I use for Savage World. I've got a ton of awesome Savage dice, right? Tons of them. But probably my favorite one are they were the set of cast off Vegas dice, the big red ones, and we would roll
sharp
those.
Corners.
They did. Oh yeah, I mean, and they always they're just big and just fun to roll. So like anything where you can roll a bucket of D6s and use those. Nice. Yes, please. For a favorite product, there was in Germany, Ives Games. Shoot, I think I screwed her name up. Right, they did these really cool dice trays, and one of them used the Torg cover for Tharkold, which was very relevant to my interests, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to buy that. And she just gave me that one. And I'm like, oh, no, why would you do that? So I bought a different one too. But I've got that one. And
so now we know we can guilt trip Darrell. That's the guy. Guilt is a strong motivator. But be too nice, and then he'll oh yeah, it's like the free. I mean, that's the reason they give the free samples of the bakery. They know
it is right.
Obliges you.
Free. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and also there's a lot of things like I can be like picky and cheap, but you give me a free one, and I get like, oh wait, I do like this. I didn't think I would, but I don't need a dice tray. But I've got a dice tray now. Well, okay, it's pretty freaking awesome. Let me buy a second one.
So true. So true. Okay. John Doe wants to know, is there another topic he excludes Wuxia. Wow. As I was going to say, we already established Darrell throws down when it comes to Wuxia knowledge. Besides
a couple things, read a couple things. Yeah.
So is there a random topic in your life that we don't know that you're a secret expert on?
So I'm a Renaissance man, y'all. There's a lot of I have approximate knowledge of many things. Like I could make an ass out of myself on dozens of topics, and be probably like 80% right and 20% wrong in all of the ways that matter, like on them. So
yeah, good enough to impress at parties, but maybe under cross-examination in a court setting, you might get called out. That's
exactly. Like, oh, you just just enough about this science of space stuff or whatever to kind of get by. Or like for my favorite, like I love E. Doc Smith, right? Because his crazy brand of science fiction is like that big, broad. He practically invented space opera, right? But what was great was he was a chemist. So he has a strong science background that is mostly ignored in his books. But what's awesome is he knows he's ignoring it. Like there's a great moment in Skylark of Space where they're like, oh yeah, they're in the magic bathtub and they, use element X and go zinging off like, 40 light years in a minute or whatever. And they get their positional fix or whatever. I was like, oh, looks like we just broke the speed of light. And the guy goes, that's not impossible. And it's like, well, clearly it is not. That's not possible. It's like, clearly it is because we just did it.
We just did it.
Apparently we don't know that much about science. And I'm like, that's all I needed. Thank you. Like he knew just enough to know when he was breaking the rules and would sometimes insert them in hilarious ways. And add that,
but you're knowledgeable enough to know that a parsec is a measure of distance and not a measure of time. So
you know what a parsec is and how far it is. Yeah. But I also don't mind. Like I didn't feel like Star Wars needed to explain that. It's like cool, man. It's just what they call it. Whatever.
I mean, I think Filoni just has this kind of such a fanboy thing where, I mean, it's clear he's cleaning up some messes.
That's just people like it and bless them. That's great. Right. I love it. I don't need it. I don't need that character's backstory, but I don't mind that it's there. Like that's cool.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I think
John Doom on the that entire pin. Oh yeah. So and I think Chris mentioned it or Tracy mentioned it in the comment, right? Like that's a sign of love, right? Because if we don't care, we're just gonna fix it and just not call you back. We'll be like, thank you for the manuscript, and we'll just do our thing. If we're gonna tear it apart, that means I want a second one from you because I wouldn't spend the time doing this if I didn't. So yeah, that's again, if you're trying to break in, that's an important thing, right? Like, and why you want to be open to it when it happens. It means, oh, they like me. Worry if they don't.
That's true.
Because I'm lazy, I don't always do it. So if you've worked for me and I didn't do it, sorry. Didn't mean I wasn't interested. It just meant I was lazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, that's the hard thing about creative processes too, right? I mean, it's like there's like existing grammar standards and all those kind of things which are there, but there's also just we have the unenviable job of cooperative creativity.
So cooperative creativity is my favorite part. Like that collaboration is what I live for. Like a project that you can have a couple of people talking about is so different from something that you're just slaving away on your own in a closet for. And like the unfiltered vision of the one is very interesting. However, once other eyeballs and brains start interacting with it, one, like it just spins out in a whole new incredible ways, and you're on your third or fourth edition just because you talked with somebody on it over lunch, right? Like you literally have that kind of light year leap on it. And like, yeah, that's the part that I love more than anything is just, like Tracy and I drive up to, Phoenix to talk to Shane, and we talk about this stuff, right? And both of us come out of that like, aha, like this was not a wasted hour of drive. Like this was a crucial hour. And then we'll have that same conversation with Shane over lunch or whatever, and a whole new thing comes out, and it's super valuable. And so it's good for your skill set to do it alone. It's better for the product to do it with people, and it's a skill set on its own to be able to do it with other people. So be open,
No, it's good advice. It's good advice. And that's the thing too. And I think being able to hit the ground running on things like, finishing tasks, getting the manuscripts done, having your stuff close as possible.
Close. Pretty close. Don's still got to fix some stuff. Simon's still got to fix some stuff, but it's pretty close.
Oh, right. Well, that's the thing. It is kind of a scary thing. I mean, like, we'll look at like as a staff over products that we put out for crowdfunding, and yes, we will say that they're close, and then, there won't be a whole lot of feedback. This has been looked over, and then Don's like, yes, there are 1,842 lines in the document over things we need to go through. And I mean,
just
obviously there's some tubes.
But just like the red ink, though, that's love.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, no. Thank goodness. Right. It's like, thank goodness. Someone cared.
Oh, God. We'd stop that process in a second if it wasn't super helpful.
Yeah. And the difference between, I think I've told this story before when we did that Tord book, right? Like Shane took a copy and redlined the whole thing, covered in blood. I took a copy covered it in blood. We had 3 different editors cover it in blood. We had like all in a row, right? We had Jim, go through it. He was a super fan who did his own version of it. He was great, right? He had the best edit I've ever seen on something, right? Like bam, covered in blood. All of these iterations making it better and more perfect. And then we go to crowd feedback, and you go from those 10 sets of eyes to 1,000 sets of eyes and get all this other stuff. And you're like, I feel like an idiot, but this is inevitable, right? Like as the more eyes you get on it, someone else is going to see that thing that you've looked over 100 times and just hardwired your brain to not see.
No, that's true. That's one way I got my foot in the door with Peg was actually on Suede. I mean, I knew Shane from before because he came out with the Rocky Mountain Savage. And so we played in each of his games and talked, whatever. And like we were working on Bureau 13 at the time, and because we were going to be publishing, and then they announced Suede, and I'm like, okay, can we get an advanced copy just so we're not the last book published before Suede, right? And obviously Bureau 13 went tits up, but I took that advanced copy and literally sent Shane back a 20-page document of just little typos and other things I found, page and line documented. And it wasn't that Suede was in a shitty condition. It was just, just little stuff.
It is. That's the little stuff. It happens, right? That we hate, but yet we got to do it, right?
Right. And like there was some other super fan who did the similar thing, and Shane's just like, hey, can you take that and what you've done and put it into the errata document of what the changes are between this and Swex? And I'm like, sure. And I did it in over a weekend versus like, that could have, it turned into a 50-page document or a 20, whatever it was,
why aren't we making you do this for Ghost Mountain? Come on, man. If that's your skill set, like, let's use you some more. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, this after the conversation of like, Darrell, you really need to give me the back of the book, like sales pitch of these, because I can't be expected to read the products that we're marketing. Oh, I love it. Well, sorry to see you go, Nelson. Hopefully you're Obrigado and manteiga, and boa noite, right? We'll see. Hopefully all the Portuguese speakers aren't cringing right now.
They are, but that's okay. I make people cringe in English too.
Ouch, Van. That's not nice. No comment. Okay.
It is, right? But I was good at learning.
Yeah.
And that's why I did very well. Some people did.
Yeah, no, not bad. Oh, serious. We talked about you earlier, Ronnie. I name dropped you at the beginning of the show because we were talking about our game tonight, which we're already 20 minutes over, so we need to get going. We got some Necessary Evil to play tonight, but
and I loved tech in its own way, and it was very good money, but it wasn't what I wanted to do.
So, okay, here's an actually good question with Ronnie. Ronnie asked, okay, so when you're on the desert island, is this the what famous person in history would you like to have met or whatever? Like who do you play with?
That's a very interesting question, but I'm going to be self-sacrificing and say I'm not sticking these poor other people on this desert island with me. I'm toughing it out solo. So sucks for me, but at least I didn't drag you to a desert island. You're welcome.
That's good stuff.
Lensman, Skylark, all of them. Void blasters, all of that stuff.
Oh my god. So we've got plenty more to cover, so we'll have to do it in another awesome episode, guys. But see, it's Friday. There's an awesome campaign running. Oh, let's do it. Wait. Oh, okay, we're good, Ronnie. So I'll see Ronnie and maybe JM tonight for some Necessary Evil character prep. I also was toying with the idea of doing the mastermind, but I'm like, do I want to put in the effort to play the mastermind, or do I want to play the brute? And so we'll see. Maybe we'll break out the draft PDF. So I think we're gonna do Necessary Evil 1, right, Ronnie? We're doing 1, playtest credit or something. Anyways, folks, thanks for joining us for Office Hours. Darrell, it's always a blast to talk with you. And we'll have obviously you'll be on again because we've got. I mean, if you've seen our calendar,
can't get away from me.
Our calendar is full of Darrell projects, which they're all Darrell projects now because you're the creative director. So, haha.
Someone else will take point for the nethe next 3, so it's cool.
Well, a little bit, but so yes, I mean, of all the recent projects, I'm super excited about Ghost Mountain. I think the Necessary Evil has got a great legacy with the company, and I think it's got a great future.
So it's literally 50 Fathoms was the one that really 50 Fathoms brought me in. Necessary Evil kind of sealed the deal of oh man, this does a very different thing and does it very well. I'm gonna pay more attention to this.
I just like how 50 Fathoms really does Necessary Evil. It when the campaign is done, there are awesome, interesting questions that lead to further awesome, interesting campaigns. So it's great. Once you've ousted the aliens and now you've got supervillains in control, how do you bring back the good? And do you? And is that possible? What is society like when you've gotten rid of the greater evil, but now you've got the lesser evils and they're in charge? What does that look like? And it's that iterative coolness of continuing the story, continuing the campaign. It's not a one and done. It really is an interesting evolution of storytelling and kind of plot. And so, yeah, that's I think it's super exciting. So I think I promised. Let me see. Let me go see. I think I promised Christian's video file.
Yes, his Dr. Destruction.
Yeah, let me go dig that up while we're. But yeah, after we'll end with the video file. But folks, get out there, play some Savage Worlds this weekend. Do some play testing. Write out, find some mistakes, send them in. I think we're closing.
No,
down. I know, no. I think we're pretty good on most of the projects. I mean, Donald will yell at me if I get this wrong, but I think we've closed down most of the feedback for a lot of the open campaigns. They're at the printer. There's so many, like, either on. So we've got a big project on the boat. There's another project that's waiting in the queue to get on a boat.
It's a good month for stuff getting done and out. Right. It'll be
I mean, It's like from here on through until it like snows again. There's going to be like delivered Savage Worlds. So, let's see. Where did I hide the Christian video? Let's go check. Maybe it's in. This is the problem with the Landauer's brain and organization structure sometimes. So here we go. Boom. Okay, so guys, go play some Savage Worlds. We're going to leave you with the Necessary Evil. Awesome work by Christian Serrano. And before we'll sign off, but we'll see you again, Office Hours next week. Mystery guest. I don't think we've decided who's going to be on next week yet. So I think JM DeFogie is going to be running Savage Universe, and I think we're probably going to either have maybe Ross Watson might come on. We'll see. I don't know if that's going to counter yet, but check out our newsletter on Tuesday, and you can find out who's going to be on Office Hours on Friday and Savage Universe on Thursday. And we'll probably
I actually have to do an apology to JM. If you look closely on the files that we show pictures of, like the GM screen, JM did our GM adventure, and it's fantastic, right? And I wrote the credits page at the last minute, and because apparently subconsciously with the Peter Pan movies coming out, I put JM Bari instead of JM DeFogie. And he's like, oh, what's that? And I'm like, oh, I'm just an idiot. Sorry, JM. I was like, why did I put this other word? And then I saw another preview for Peter Pan. I'm like, that's why. It just settled in. So sorry.
Apparently we're both twinsies like that too, because just this week I put JM DeGoffey, as in he was like a new hybrid of John Goff and JM. Instead of DeFogie on the social media image to advertise his stream. So yes, you can write to JM DeGoffey or JM and it's not even that hard of a name, really. So anyways, both of us are, and Bari's got the double R, and Fogie's got the double G, and Goff has the double F. Forgive us. It's language is hard.
I blame Peter Pan. So
I don't know what I can blame. Am I having a stroke? I don't know. But for all of the advice we just gave people, dot your I's and cross your T's, and make sure the writing's up to stuff. And we're just we can't even spell our friend and colleague's name correctly.
Embrace failure.
That's true.
And then embrace being open to fixing failure.
That is also true. Yes, fix the mistakes and smile and be happy. And so anyways, folks, we will see you next week. We'll probably do some kind of earlier in the week video for Necessary Evil, just to kind of talk about where the campaign is at that point. So if you haven't picked it up, today's National Superhero Day, so go pick up Necessary Evil. It's awesome. You get all 3 books. It's a lot of adventuring and a lot of cool stories. So other than that, here is the awesome introduction from Christian Serrano. And after that, we'll see you guys.
Villains. That's how the world labeled us. But when the Visori invaded 3 years ago, society's so-called heroes failed. Champion, Silver Sentinel, the rest of Alpha Force, and all the others succumbed to a simple ruse, and for their naivety, they were slaughtered. The only ones left to fight for Earth are those with the foresight to see the disease in society which led to the heroes' annihilation. And for that, I, Dr. Destruction, was called. No, we were called supervillains. But now, under my leadership, we are the Omega Resistance. We're powerful, organized, cunning, ruthless, and we will take our planet back. The people of the world know we are their only chance for freedom. So, for now, they accept us as a necessary evil. Welcome to Necessary Evil, where the fate of the world lies with the scum of the earth.